This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we are exploring more than code, how real relationships sustain us in an automated world. My guest today is Dr. Allison Pugh, and parts of this conversation were originally broadcast in December of 2024. Allison Pugh, who is a professor of sociology at Johns Hopkins University and the 2024-25 vice president of the American Sociological Association. She writes about how people forge connections and find meaning and dignity at work and at home. Allison's work has been widely published in The New Yorker, Time Magazine, The New Republic, Aeon, the Harvard Business Review, and more. Professor Pugh builds a compelling case for the preservation of human work in an increasingly automated and mechanical world. Her newest book is titled The Last Human Job, the Work of Connecting in a Disconnected World. Welcome, Allison. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Sure thing. And thanks so much for having me. This is an honor to be a part of what you try to do here. So yeah,
Thank you.
Glad to be, one of on your roster. So I started this because I was interested in the phenomenon of how people see each other and how important that work is. And speaking personally, I'm the youngest of 5 children, and in I would say, overall loving family. I was not very carefully seen,
Oof,
and
I bet. Just by birth order.
Exactly. But I really had that kind of profound experience when I got to grad school. And my advisor at the time used to say, "I want you to sing your song." And my experience of grad school was her essentially working with me to try and elicit what really mattered to me. And that was so profound. And it's something I also do as a PhD advisor, is try and see, my grad students don't work on my work. They work on their work, and figuring out what work that is part of my job. So that process, which is a form of teaching, close teaching, involves kind of seeing the other, reflecting back to them what you know about what you're seeing about them, and having them kind of either correct it or agree, or, it's a kind of interactive, deeply interactive process. And in doing that, and also in doing it as part of in-depth interviews, which is another way I do my research, I started to just see this kind of practice was vital for all kinds of economic work happening across our economy, from, therapists, obviously, but also to, all kinds of teaching, coaching, et cetera, anything involving any kind of advice. You can't just throw advice at someone unless you know what they're about, what they're looking for, how they're trying to change, et cetera. Primary care physicians, managers, high-end sales, the list is really long. So I started this book really interested in kind of plotting how far this extends. And, labor economists recognize this. They have decided, they say we're moving from a thinking economy to a feeling economy. And so one could say I was interested in kind of how far that feeling economy went. But at the same time, and here's the other half of the book, I was interested in the kind of central problem of emotional connection, which is how do you scale it up?
Yeah.
And how do you make it systematic? How do you control the endless labor costs of having this kind of privilege of deeply connected, emotional, kind of labor between two people? So I was looking around, this is around 2015, and most of the people that were asking that same question were actually AI engineers. And that's
Mm.
how this book came to be.
Wow. Right. And AI engineers are endeavoring to systematize or streamline the human factor, right, through machines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's some things that cannot really be replaced by a machine.
Well,
Try
that's
as we
something,
might.
right? Exactly. Well, that's something that people disagree about. And when I was starting this book, I was pretty agnostic about the issue. I was interested, the argument for mechanizing, kind of human connection is there are several, and engineers are using all of these. You'll have heard all of these in the kind of hype that surrounds AI. But the first one is it's better than nothing. Like, if people aren't getting good therapy, if they aren't getting good teaching, who are we to deny them access to it if it comes via machine? Machines are, cheaper and more widely available potentially. So I was that argument struck home, and I was part of that. Like, who would deny them? Of course, you want to spread access. The trouble is, and this is a kind of position I came to after years and years and years of research with, score interviews and observations, hundreds of hours of observations with people who do this work, as well as many interviews with engineers. I came to think that we need to we need a term for this work so we can talk about it. Because I'm talking about this reflecting, deeply emotional kind of attunement to the other that underlies all kinds of work. Lawyers do this, et cetera.
Yes.
We need a term for that because it's really an engine for the things we value, like whether a kid learns algebra or whether someone can heal their chronic illness or whatever. So I wanted a term for it, and I labeled it, or I came up with the idea of connective labor as something that people do when they are, doing this deeply interactive work of seeing the other and being seen. And then I started to think about how its, value, it's, what it produces, how people do it. And I started to realize that there are things about it that are, as you say, utterly irreplaceable.
Yeah. The idea of the surrogate or the machine being the intermediary as the better than nothing, I totally get. But of course, and this humanness, right? The ability to look at somebody in the eye and feel that you're being heard has an irreplaceable feeling, right? Like a visceral response as humans that we have to one another that I don't know can be replaced by a machine.
Exactly. And I can go into that, but first I want to help your listeners by giving them the answer to the better than nothing kind of rationale. Because I'm not about denying, marginalized or low income or, disadvantaged populations access. It's that is using technology to solve a problem that we have created, one could say, politically. So they don't have access to good, if they don't have access to a particular service, it's because we have decided that, by essentially crowding public clinics and public classrooms. These are staffing decisions and funding decisions that we have made that we are trying to solve with technology. So that's the first answer, that this is a kind of false solution to a constructed problem. But the second answer is that if we kind of consent to that rationale, it's better than nothing, we are hurtling towards a world in which rich people are seen by humans, and those often those very people that are doing the seeing are themselves seen by bots. And
Oof.
that's a kind of profoundly disturbing inequality that I don't want baked into our society at all.
Yeah. So it's who's also caring for the caregivers or the providers of services, and there are not enough resources to support everyone, is what I think I'm hearing you say.
Well, that's the rush. I mean, that's how we've come to this problem by this kind of, I would say, a language of scarcity. But I believe this is a political decision that we made before the problem, to create this problem. But I actually think you can fully fund public schools. You can fully fund public clinics. It's a decision not to. And in kind of compressing the labor and making it so strapped for the people who are working in those environments, we are kind of crippling or handicapping their capacity to offer really good human to human connective labor.
One of the talking points is what goes wrong when we prioritize data metrics and standardized practices over connection. If somebody doesn't realize that if they've always been automated or been in a system that automates how they're being handled, do they necessarily know what's missing?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to say yes. I actually have interesting data or, stories to tell about people on both ends of the interaction with regard to exactly that question. The first is about, when I say people on both ends, I mean the worker and also the recipient or whatever.
Yes.
So I'm talking about the teacher and the student, or the therapist or the client, that kind of thing. So, do clients understand what's missing? They really do.
Yeah.
Here's an example. And before I go in that example, I want to address something that is kind of lurking and we haven't articulated yet. And that is the relationship between kind of data and metrics and efficiency norms happening at the workplace and automation and AI, because those things are both in my book and they're deeply related. But I talk about both of them, and people might be confused about, why I thought we were talking about AI. Why are we now talking about data analytics or something like that? They're related because essentially they're all about trying to scale up or really control labor costs and impose efficiency on these very human-centered interpersonal service jobs. So we know this from this is what we're talking about when we're talking about teachers having to collect data on their students, doctors filling out the electronic health record. This is the kind of data kind of primacy, the priority given data collection in these human connective labor jobs that start to actually degrade those jobs. So this is how it's related to AI, because as those jobs get degraded, you start to kind of think the job's a little robotic anyway. Let's just give the machine this part of it. And it's not as much of a catastrophic loss. It's a slippery slope, I would say. And so they're deeply related. That's the first thing I want to say. Yeah.
Can we give an example of that? Like something comes to mind and I want to make sure I understand what you're explaining. When I go for my annual physical, the doctor who I absolutely adore, she is typing as we're conducting the exam.
Yeah.
And because she has to document and chart what goes on in the exam. And she whines about it. I mean, I've gone to her for a long time. So I'm wondering if those kinds of data inputs can be enhanced by AI in a different way right? Where
Mm-hmm.
she's actually looking at me, touching my
Mm-hmm.
shoulder, and we're having a conversation about my healthcare concerns. And, that robot over there is doing the charting,
Beautiful. And you've actually put your finger on an actual excellent use case for AI.
Yes.
That's actually happening right now. I would say
Fantastic.
doctors are burning out.
Yeah.
Primary care,
Therapists.
we're losing primary care physicians who have, spent years on and, hundreds of thousands of dollars on their training, and we are losing them because we are forcing them to also do data entry. And their hearts are breaking because they got into this for this kind of deeply relational work, and it's being kind of increasingly squeezed into these tiny incremental pieces where they're having to do all this charting and then oh yeah, so how are you? And they never get to it. They are very articulate about how dehumanized they feel their patients are by this phenomenon. But you are completely right.
The good
news is AI is being used now in certain places as a scribe and performing the scribe function. And I would say, and this is for your listeners, I am not a Luddite. I am not anti all AI. I use it. I vaccinate myself and my children. I believe in science. It's just that I want us to kind of pay very close attention to when AI is replacing or kind of impeding human connection and relationship. But in this use case, it's actually a great example of something I'm all in favor of. And doctors I've heard are really, I've heard only positive things from the ones that I've talked to about it.
Let's take a pause. And when we come back, we will continue the conversation with Professor Allison Pugh. She is the author of The Last Human Job, the work of connecting in a disconnected world. To learn more, please go to AllisonPugh.com, on X at Allison_Pugh, on Facebook, Allison J. Pugh, Instagram, Allison Pugh 2. I like that. And that's TOO. And on LinkedIn, you can also find her at Allison Pugh. Here comes that pause. I'll be right back. Wait. Before we take that pause, I want to mention that this episode is brought to you in part by Function Health, a revolutionary platform founded with a bold mission to help us live 100 healthy years. Because let's be honest, a happy, fulfilling life begins with good health. It starts with awareness. Good health means taking charge of our bodies and our lifestyles, and that's where Function Health steps in. I chose Function because it is the only health platform that gives access to the kind of personalized health information that most people never get to see. This empowers me to make responsible choices about my own health and well-being. Function offers comprehensive full-body lab testing that goes well beyond the basics, providing you with the information you need to take control of your health before issues develop. It's the first empowered step towards disease prevention, longevity, and feeling your best every day. What I love about Function is that it was created by respected health leaders, including Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, and Dr. Jeremy London, who know the gaps in healthcare and are determined to change the game. With Function, your data is private, the science is cutting edge, and your health is in your hands. For example, lately everyone, including me, has been talking about feeling burnt out. Behind the scenes, high-functioning people are quietly falling apart. Low energy, fragile mood, libido gone MIA. Function helped me discover the signals that are invisible to the naked eye, like testosterone and DHES linked to low libido and fertility, cortisol, the stress hormone impacting inflammation, immunity, and metabolism, as well as vitamin D and magnesium, keys to a healthy musculoskeletal and immune system. Function is the first health membership that gives you access to over 100 biomarkers across the entire body, including hormones, metabolism, inflammation, and more, taking the guesswork out of managing your health and vitality. In addition, you can also obtain MRIs and CT scans. That means nearly 360-degree real medical-grade insights, tracked over time, explained in plain language. Learn more and join using my link. The first 1,000 get a $100 credit toward their membership. Visit www.functionhealth.com/HH or use gift code HH100 at sign up to own your health. Again, that's www.functionhealth.com/HH and gift code HH100. Now let's take that pause. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back. But before we get back to it, I want to discuss the importance of solid restorative sleep because genuine happiness begins with genuine rest. A solid night's sleep fuels our mood, sharpens our minds, and helps us to wake up feeling genuinely refreshed and better able to handle life's ups and downs. One way to improve your sleep quality is to enhance the environment in which you sleep. Your bed should be a luxurious and inviting haven that surrounds you with soft textures and temperature control, regardless of whether you sleep hot or cold. Buffy, today's episode co-sponsor, is my go-to for dream bedding. All products are designed to provide a deeper, uninterrupted sleep. Their mission is to make your bed feel like a spa treatment every night. Thanks to Buffy's specialized temperature-adapting properties, I am happy to report that my menopause-induced night sweats are better managed even in the sweltering summer heat. Buffy is microscopically crafted for unmatched smoothness, creating a sleep climate that balances the amount of moisture under the covers. This bedding helps protect delicate skin from irritation for a luxurious, skin-friendly sleep experience. Buffy is committed to making chemical-free, non-toxic products that are as kind to the earth as they are to your skin. Buffy is high-quality designer bedding that is beautiful, comfortable, and affordable. I'm a huge fan of their crisp white linen sheets, but you can find several color choices at buffy.co. With a continuous commitment to quality, every Buffy item comes with a complimentary 3-year warranty. Most brands stop at 1, while Buffy protects you against rips, stains, or defects for 3 full years. No questions asked. All this care hasn't gone unnoticed. Buffy is the most awarded bedding brand with hundreds of awards to its name, including recognition from Architectural Digest, Consumer Reports, and House Beautiful. Join me and millions of satisfied sleepers who snooze in luxurious comfort with Buffy. Get 20% off your first Buffy order using code HHTR at buffy.co. That's 20% off when you use code HHTR at buffy.co. Buffy.co, code HHTR. Now let's return to the conversation. Now let's get back to the conversation with my guest today, Dr. Allison Pugh. We're talking about more than code, how real relationships sustain us in an automated world. Allison, as you were speaking in the first half of the episode, I was thinking about the soul, right? That one thing that feels like it's irreplaceable in an automated or machined environment is the soulfulness that we do have when we're in connection with another person. And then you mentioned something about readers of your book and some perspectives that you've heard on that and how it connects with Religion?
Yeah, religious people of faith have contacted me. A lot of them have contacted me about the book. It's an audience that has leapt to embrace it, you could say, because I think it speaks to something that they deeply care about. I don't really talk about soul in the book, but I do talk about the purpose and dignity and understanding that people get from seeing the other and being seen. And I talk about the kind of, I guess scientists would call it like nonverbal communication, but like we might say the vibe or the, kind of teachers called it the spidey sense, like
Ooh.
the way we connect, the energy that is in the room around our connection. So I think that when I hear the word soul, I think of words like, kind of the profound meaning and, sustaining sense of purpose that comes from people connecting and communing together. And that is what this book is about.
Yeah.
How does that happen and who's doing it? And how can, what are the ways we can make that easier and better for them?
And by using the word soul, like I know that it has a connotation of woo-woo, that we might not use that in a professional environment, but in a casual conversation, that element, right? That humanity is something that is not manufactured, right? It's part of the essence of being human. And we tend to relate better with others when we have that soulful connection. You might call it like, oh, I really like their vibe, or I really connected with them. And that's the secret sauce, right? It's
right. I mean,
intangible.
yes, I love what you're saying. It's part of the issue here is that we need to learn how to value our interactions with each other, our connections to each other. And, like there's a very famous sociologist of, the 100 years ago or more than 100 years ago, Emil Durkheim, and he called it collective effervescence. I don't even think
Ooh.
we need that much collectivity. It could be just two people, but I think two people can produce a kind of effervescence that to many will feel sacred. And that's not what you can get from kind of just interacting with a machine. Where a machine, you can feel like a machine sees you. People have gone to ChatGPT, asked it a question, and then had the bot come back to them and say, this is whatever, you're talking about this, and here's what we know about that, and how about this? It can feel like conversing with an intelligent other person, but because it is not, because it is a machine, you're not actually producing this, kind of collective or sacred effervescence. You're really kind of creating something just with yourself. And can, kind of, we have a soul that exists in a vacuum? That's a religious question. But I do feel like these connections really dive down into, or these connections kind of rely on what the magic is that people create together.
It's the emotion feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
That is from human to human exclusively, right? You don't get that from the bot. I mean, the bot can be helpful, if you want to cancel an order that you placed, online. Okay, yeah, I see the value of that. It saves time and money. Point well taken. But if I'm really looking for something, some relational something,
Mm-hmm.
it has to come from that human contact, from that listening, from the energy exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's another word for it.
Yeah, because we cannot be our own mirrors. We
Yeah.
need other people.
We
And
do.
it feels funny to have to articulate how we need other people, but I did just that. I mean, for example, when I looked into like what this work creates, I found really that it creates kind of dignity and purpose and understanding. And it does that for both the person being seen and the seer, actually. So I have an example of, for example, a woman who's a nurse practitioner who went to in college. She intended to be a doctor, a physician, but I think she didn't do well in organic chemistry. So became a nurse practitioner, but always, she said, kind of struggled with ego problems and kind of, I'm better than this a little. And then one day she was telling me a story about having kind of tending to a homeless man who had almost walked across the country, walked for many, 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 many miles and days. And his feet were full of wounds and cracks, and he was bent over, couldn't look up really, couldn't nobody could look him in the eye even. He was so bent over. And that day, she tells me, she just sat down and took care of his feet and bathed his feet, tended his feet, washed them. And she said it was profound for both of us, because nobody is seeing him during his life, during his day-to-day wanderings. And for her, it was a very meaningful act of service that helped to give him dignity and helped her to find her own humanity, so that she found deep purpose in this moment of serving another person. I have a teacher who I spoke to, her Pamela Moore, who told me about when she was growing up. She had something that's called selective mutism. It means children who don't really speak, and they thought she needed special ed. They didn't really know what was going on. Her family moved often every few months, so it was a very stressful kind of childhood. And one day, a teacher kind of wouldn't give up and just sat and elicited something from her, so that she eventually found out that actually she needed to be put into gifted classes, not special ed. And she said, I want to be that teacher for other kids that she was for me. I want to be that person. And so she's poured herself into this public school in Oakland, where she takes the kids camping. She, she does a lot of extra work to try and see them as whole people, even though it's a very high need school with, more than 75% getting free and reduced lunch, et cetera. So these are kind of individual heroes that I admired greatly, but also they were talking about what they get out of it and what they try to give others. And they were stories of profound meaning.
I think, Allison, that is a perfect place to pause to learn more about Professor Allison Pugh's work, her book, The Last Human Job, the work of connecting in a disconnected world. Please go to AllisonPugh.com, on X at Allison_Pugh. Facebook is Allison J. Pugh. Instagram, this is a good one, Allison Pugh 2, and that's TOO. And on LinkedIn, you can find her at Allison Pugh. Allison, thank you so much for this soulful human conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Dr. Allison Pugh, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day, and remember to be kind to one another. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.